Hi everyone. I'm going to be speaking to you today about the first half of July and the new moon coming up in Cancer on the 5th. Now, this new moon is sandwiched in between two full moons in Capricorn, which is quite unusual. One we have just had at 1 degree of Capricorn, and the other will be at 29 degrees of Capricorn on the 21st of July. That second one will be much more powerful because of the energies leading into it, as well as the 29th degree of Capricorn being highly activated by Pluto in recent months. So let me start to talk about this just before we get to the new moon, which is in Cancer, which is going to be happening on the 5th. We had Saturn, or we have Saturn moving stationary retrograde at 19 degrees of Pisces on the 29th of June. And as always, when planets change direction, their symbolism is magnified and it is felt several days to either side. So if you have any planets between 17 and 22 degrees of the mutable signs, they are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, or Pisces in particular, you may be feeling this kind of drilling down. It's going to be at 19 degrees of Pisces for the next couple of months. And so this can be to do with work discipline, really having to use a lot of patience, a lot of focus, a lot of work, to do with an area of life where 19 degrees of Pisces is falling for you. I mean, for me, it's almost laughable because it's in my fourth house. Pisces is to do with issues around water, Saturn, work, repairs. I've had major cesspit issues, washing machine issues, dishwasher issues, now major leaks in my bathroom. So, I mean, it's so literal, it's ridiculous. So see where 19 degrees of Pisces is falling in your chart and what is being activated. And sometimes it's to do with some form of external attempted control or weightiness, some boss or bureaucracy that you have to work through. But Saturn is excellent in its rewards if you apply patience, just work steadily through something. But Saturn is always, I think, about a reality check. And particularly because it's magnified in its station retrograde on the 29th of June and the following few days after that, it's almost asking us the question, how far have you come in your spiritual development, Pisces? How far have you come in your spiritual development? When planets are retrograde, they are also closer to the Earth. And that, hence that magnification aspect, we feel their symbolism more strongly. There could be greater attempted control happening in the world in general, more militarization appearing. That's another possibility. And also remember, and I'll put the link for the video I did below. It was a quick astrological update last time, and I was talking there about the centaur Nessus, which has a 125 year orbit, and that is at 19 degrees of Pisces also. So for the next couple of months, Saturn is conjunct Nessus. Now, I talked about the symbolism of Nessus in a lot of detail in that video, so I'll put the link below, and rather than repeat it all, then you can go and take a look. But for Melanie Reinhardt, the wonderful researcher astrologer who is an expert on Nessus, it's all about the buck stops here. The buck stops here. Linked to issues around Pisces, in particular around victimhood, particularly with Nessus, it's around deceptions, lies. Pisces is also linked, as is Neptune, to the blood, the immune system, poisoning, toxicity, that kind of thing. So go back and check that, but it's about the buck stops here. So the next couple of months are going to be very interesting in that regard, I think, around those issues. It's also, with Saturn moving through Pisces until February 2026, another theme of Saturn in Pisces is dissolving density, dissolving gravity. And I've talked about this quite a few months ago, how as we move into the light body, we are actually dissolving our density. We're becoming homoluminous, we're becoming lighter beings. And that is the effect of raising our consciousness. In fact, there is an inverse relationship between gravity and consciousness. If you look at what was happening to the astronauts after they left on various missions, after they left the Earth's magnetic field, gravitational field, they started to have some really profound psychic experiences and expand their consciousness. Edgar Mitchell has written a great deal about this as one of the astronauts, and he set up an organization called IONS, which some of you may be familiar with. So there's an inverse relationship between gravity and consciousness. And so I think that's one of the big themes of Saturn. We are becoming the light body. We are raising our consciousness, particularly over this period running into February 2026. Many of us are feeling this with the ingredients of the photon belt, the high frequency light we're experiencing to a greater degree, because it only happens once every 12,000 years, give or take 500, plus the great deal, the very intensified solar activity with the solar flares. We're moving through the peak of solar cycle 25, that 11-year sunspot cycle. So we have a lot of ingredients to lift our consciousness right now. So, but it's like with Saturn retrograding in Pisces, it's kind of pulling the covers back on some of these issues, which actually Neptune amplifies further. Neptune is also in Pisces. It is also moving stationary retrograde on the 2nd of July. So within a few days of each other, these two planets in Pisces are moving retrograde. And remember, they're going to be closer to the Earth, so their symbolism is felt more strongly. Now, so this Neptune is at 29 degrees 55 minutes of Pisces, the last 5 minutes of the zodiac. Incredible. And again, it's going to be staying hovering around that 29 degrees for the next couple of months, and also it will be at that point in several months next year. So if you have any planets round about 28 degrees of the mutable signs, which are Gemini, Virgo, as I've mentioned, Sagittarius, Pisces, into 0 degrees of the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, you are going to be feeling this Neptune transit. Now, this is also on the world axis, because anything between 28 of the mutables and 2 degrees of the cardinals, those 4 points in the zodiac, that is considered to be the world axis, and therefore on the public stage in a bigger way. And so, although it's the very, very last degree of the zodiac, it carries within it the new seed for the new episode for humanity. And I think that new episode for humanity is really going to begin in a bigger way round about February 2026, when both Saturn and Neptune, holding hands, move together into the very first degree of the zodiac, zero of Aries. That's going to be a big deal. So I hope I'm making sense here with all this astrology. So if you have any planets or aspects and any angles being aspected by Neptune, there can be a feeling of that area of your life, that area of your chart where 29 degrees of Pisces is falling, could be dissolving right now. There's something that's dissolving, where you feel you're losing your footing a little bit. It's not quite as permanent and secure as it used to be. But know that that is an end of an old episode for you, and just kind of observe rather than kind of panic. Just observe what is moving away to allow the new to be born. What is just falling away to allow the new to be born? And the antidote to that, to give you a greater feeling of stability and security, is the antidote is nature, particularly bare feet on the earth. Bare feet on the earth, hug a tree, be in nature. Breath work can do it as well, but I think the most kind of tangible antidote is bare feet on the earth, to give you that greater feeling of connection and solidity. But ultimately, our anchor is inner. Our anchor is within ourselves, as I've talked about a great deal. So, and this process over the next couple of months in particular could really show us, I think, the depths of the illusions that we've been living through, the depths of the deceptions, the illusions that we've been experiencing in recent times. And so it's going back over. Both Saturn and Neptune are going back over, because they're both in Pisces, they're both retrograde, issues around water, around seas, oceans, toxicity, chemicals, drugs, toxicity of those, lies, deceptions, oil, blood, the immune system, poisons, all of those kinds of things kind of, and it is really signaling the end of the illusions. So there can be a sense of disillusionment coming in as the veils fall away, which is a necessary process. And allowing that to happen in order that we can find more truthful ground. It may give you, at times you may have a sense of being adrift in a void. That kind of a feeling. It may give you much greater sensitivity to suffering in the world, be that human or animal. I know I'm feeling that to a huge degree right now. It also increases potentially your sense of compassion. And of course, when we have greater compassion, that moves us closer to unity consciousness as we come together with all humanity. So that can actually be very productive. But with Neptune, I always think Neptune transits are the most malleable in not only reminding us of the malleability of our reality, but also that we can change gear on these transits when we feel. I was saying this to Heather Ensworth. We did a whole video on 29 degrees of Pisces with Neptune. I'll put that link for that video below. But it's when you feel, I'm in a fog, I don't know who I am, I'm weepy, droopy, lost. Turn to something spiritual or creative. Meditate more, listen to sacred music, be in nature, create, write poetry, do some art. Because even in quite late stages of life, I've known people in their 60s and older who during a Neptune transit become artists, poets, whatever. It can be extremely productive if you start to move to the spiritual and or the creative. Remember, the music has to play. The music has to play in your birth chart. So if you're using up the energy positively, it has less energy to manifest negatively. Always remember that. Really, that's true of any transit, but I think Neptune transits are the most malleable to deal with, because it's actually about malleability, particularly in Pisces. So, yeah, all of those things are going to be happening. The veils are going to be falling, and that will really, the next couple of months will start to take us into that autumn period when Pluto retrogrades back for its very, very final time in the last couple of degrees of Capricorn in its 248-year cycle. So it shifts back into Capricorn 2nd of September to the 19th of November, and it won't be in Capricorn again after that for around about another 240 years. So these are big, big shifts of endings and beginnings, repeated over and over at every level. So, but whatever is being revealed during these Saturn and Neptune retrogrades will be ingredients for whatever is unfolding during the Pluto retrograde back into those last couple of degrees of Capricorn. And as I've mentioned before, it may feel as if things in the world are going backwards. We're going back into the old order. And I'm not saying that to raise any fear. Actually, to the contrary, I'm making you aware that if you start to feel like that, if there are, increasing attempts at, Neptune in Pisces, there's another virus coming up, or, Saturn more attempted control or whatever, those retrogrades are almost a test of, are we going to react in the same way as last time? Are we going to react in the same way as last time? Or have we expanded our consciousness enough to move on so we are going to be in a different state of being and react differently in this very last phase, this last gasp of the old order, the old system? And understand it's going to be messy at the 3D level. You can't get a new kitchen without a lot of mess and rubble. Just know it's going to be messy. You don't have to live at the 3D level, as I've said many, many times. So I hope that's resonating, making some sense for you. We're going to have a very imaginative time, a couple of days, 1st, 2nd of July, because Mercury is in trine to Neptune, wonderful for the imagination. We're going to have quite a powerful day on the 3rd, because Mercury is then opposing Pluto, 1 degree of Leo Aquarius. This can be around forceful communication, power struggles in the world, arguments, strong speech. And then we move into the new moon, which is happening on the 5th of July. It's happening at 14 degrees, 23 minutes of Cancer. It happens at 3:57 p.m. Pacific and 23:57, just 3 minutes before midnight. That's British Summer Time, UK time, also on the 25th. Now, just before I show you the chart, what that means is that this new moon at 14 degrees of Cancer is conjunct our spiritual sun, Sirius. Sirius in our heavens is at 14 degrees of Cancer. It's 23 times brighter than our own sun. It was very important in ancient Egypt. It was the star of the goddess Ceres, and very much linked to spiritual awakening, very much linked to discovering and expressing your unique essence and your authenticity, very much linked to receiving high frequency information. When planets like the sun, and in this case, the sun and the moon, come to conjunct Sirius. Now, of course, every year around about this time, the sun comes to conjunct Sirius, of course, as it moves through those mid degrees of Cancer, but not every year do we have a new moon, the sun and moon together at 14 degrees of Cancer. This is also conjunct the sun in that US chart, 4th of July, 1776, 10 past 5 in the afternoon, Philadelphia, because that's at 13 degrees of Cancer. So again, we are having the US highlighted yet again, as I've spoken so many times in recent months. So this is a very beautiful aspect. It opens up the potential for us receiving high frequency information. It's another aspect of our expanded consciousness coming in at this time. See where 14 degrees of Cancer lands in your own birth chart, because don't forget to set a new intention for whatever new seed you want to plant at this time, what you're trying to birth and manifest in your life. See which house area 14 degrees of Cancer falls in. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can download a free birth chart from my website. Go to this link below and you get a 2-part video series you can use forever. And that will take you from zero to show you, it's not a birth chart analysis, these are teaching videos to show you how to find these points in your chart that I refer to in the updates and what they mean for you. And it really is the beginning of your astrological journey. So interestingly also, 14 degrees of Cancer is at the midpoint of the midheaven in the UK chart, 1st of January 1801, 0 hours London. The midheaven is the government, the leadership. It's at the midpoint of that and the midheaven ruler, the moon, because this is in Cancer. So essentially, this is a new beginning for the government, new beginning for leadership. Well, not only do we have a general election on the 4th, and the new government, whoever's won, will be announced on the 5th, right on this new moon, but it suggests there will be a change in government, I believe. And actually, that's a no-brainer. You don't need an astrologer to tell you that. I think it's highly unlikely that the current party will still be in power after we go through that general election on the 4th, the results coming out on the 5th. So it is also, as I say, conjunct the Sun in the US chart at 13, that's at 13 of Cancer. The Sun in the US chart rules the 9th house of legalities, important legalities for the country, and foreign relations. So we'll see what unfolds. I'm going to talk about other important aspects concerning prominent people in the US in a moment, a little further into this video. So yes, let us now look at the chart for the new moon at 14 degrees of Cancer. So as always, I set this chart for England, where I live, so ignore the clock face, ignore the houses. We're just going to look at the where the planets fall in the chart by sign and their aspects to each other. So let's just talk about Cancer energy. Cancer energy it's a very, very sensitive water sign. It's to do with gentleness, empathy, sympathy, nurturing. There's a very strong need for home to be a sanctuary, that you have to have a safe and secure home to retreat to. It's about emotional security. It can be about financial security as well. It's very important to have a nest, a safe nest to retreat to from all the hubbub in the world. And so these are people, if you have any strong Cancer emphasis, you not only need nurturing yourself, but you instinctively know what other people need to feel nurtured in the world and individually. Very motherly energy, often to do with cooking, that kind of thing, homey pursuits, but very caring, very loving in a motherly way. Now, this new moon is in an opposition to Ceres, the largest asteroid at 14. It's spot on to the degree. And Ceres brings in issues around harvests, grains, food. So again, I think we could have some issues coming up about that. I mean, that's crystal clear in the world. You know, if you're following any news of any kind, particularly alternative news, you'll be aware of what's happening with food production and farming in the world. Ceres is also in a trine here to Mars. Mars is in a wide conjunction to Uranus. I'm going to talk much more about that in a moment because that's operational now, but it's going to get much closer mid-month. And this is an ongoing suggestion of innovations in food production and farming, innovations. But please, as I've suggested before, if they're, because of weather extremes, whatever reason, try and grow some food at home, even if it's only microgreens on your windowsill. So cheap, so easy. Get a very inexpensive sprouter. You can sprout broccoli sprouts or dried lentils or peas or chickpeas. You just need to spray them with water twice a day, and within about 3 days, you've got incredibly nutritious sprouts. So easy. Even if you just live in a small apartment, you can do this. So that, I think, is also ongoing. Also, we have something I want to talk about, which is the dwarf planet Salacia is at 11 degrees of Aries, conjunct the North Node. And so the North Node is our collective soul's path of growth at this point in our journey. And Salacia being there, Salacia has around about a 300-year orbit. That is directing us to have a greater understanding of the light. I think Salacia is very linked to photonic light, the shimmering moonlight and sunlight on the sea. We know from Veda Austin's beautiful work that water is the medium to carry the light. And it's that, both the water and the light, that carry information. As we drink it, this allows us to ingest a lot of information. The more structured the water is, Saturn in Pisces, structured water, the more high frequency information we can take in. Water carries memory. Salacia is also mermaid energy. And I believe that she is very linked also to dolphin energy. I believe that she's linked to Lemurian energy, because Lemurian culture was very linked to dolphin energy. I believe that the Lemurians were very, very tuned into dolphin energy, and dolphin and whale energy. Heather Ainsworth mentioned this, and other people have mentioned it too, that whale and dolphin energy is holding much higher frequency energy for us to evolve towards. So there's something here. I haven't quite got to the end of this rabbit hole, but there's something here about Salacia, light that is being carried by the water, high frequency information, mermaid energy, also linked to dolphin energy, also linked to Lemurian energy. Mermaid energy is linked to Lemurian energy. There's something around that whole area, and I'm sorry I haven't quite got to the end of that rabbit hole, but I think is very important for us to understand, also in terms of food growth, because Salacia and the North Node are square to Ceres, linked to food. And there's something about the more structured the water we use, the more light that it can carry, boosting the food crop yield, that I think we're going to learn and understand. So I'm sorry if I haven't quite completed that thought, but I'm sure some of you can, in terms of where that's going. And I also believe that our consciousness is going to play a bigger part in food growth. Now, when I was talking to Heather Ainsworth recently, and again, that video will be below, some of you may be aware that if you spit on vegetable seeds when you're planting them, that resultant vegetable will have within it anything that you are deficient in. You know, if you're deficient in a mineral or whatever, that seed will have naturally produced that mineral in order to make up for, to compensate for your deficiency, which is just mind-blowing in itself. But there's something more in this about us fully applying our consciousness, our light, and our intention in boosting food growth. Okay, I hope some of you are understanding this perhaps slightly better than I am at the moment, but on we go. Okay, now this new moon is square, as I say, to the North Node and Salacia. So this is highlighting all I've just been discussing. It is also square, so this is a T-square, to a dwarf planet called Makemake at 8 degrees of Libra. Now, I've talked about Makemake before. Makemake is linked to the creator god of Easter Island, the Rapa Nui people. The whole myth around Makemake was that it was a thriving ecosystem, and then in the kind of 1700s, the European sailors came and they pillaged the island, they chopped down the trees, they brought diseases, the rats escaped from the ship onto the land, and they basically devastated Easter Island. And at one point, and I believe this is historically true, in the 1800s, the total number of residents on Easter Island was down to 111. I mean, it was absolutely on its knees. But because the Easter Island people understood how to work with nature, and it's also partly because there's a particular chemical in the soil there called rapamycin, which is fantastic for regenerating the land and food. And in fact, I believe scientists are investigating rapamycin to help longevity for us as humans. That the whole myth around Makemake was that they were able to regenerate their entire ecosystem back to health, which is just incredible in quite a short time. And so what we're looking at here in this T-square is strong regenerative energy using consciousness, using a more harmonious balance with nature, Libra, getting right balance, harmonious balance with nature, understanding the light, understanding the water, understanding the greater importance of our consciousness in regenerating ourselves and our earth, that is going to accelerate the arrival of new earth faster than we think. It's not going to be a 3D slog of decades. You know, if we looked at it logically, it's going to take us a very long time. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be much faster because these dwarf planets are operating at a quantum level. And of course, as I've spoken in recent videos, we've got this amazing, if you can see it, between Neptune, dotted green line, quincunx to Haumea, and dotted green line back to Sedna. This finger of God, finger of fate. I've talked about it before. I won't repeat all of that because this is the long-running Yod, finger of God, finger of fate, all of this year, all of next, and in fact ongoing in terms of regeneration. So super strong. Just to point out as well that this new moon is in a very obsessive aspect, quindicile, 165-degree aspect to Pluto. Quindicile has a very tight orb of 2 degrees either end of it, and this could suggest again greater attempted control, Pluto. However, Pluto is now in Aquarius, and this is marking the beginning of the shift of power to the people. Pluto moving from Capricorn into Aquarius, it's not going to happen in a day, a week, a month. The beginning of a shift of power to the people. And this new moon in Cancer is another step in that. It's going to be amplified very soon, I think. Second half of this year has very different energy in terms of the collapse of the old and the birth of the new. So truth's coming to light in a bigger way, I think, is a very strong part of this. So, Yeah, we really are going to be understanding the interconnectedness of everything in a bigger way. It's what these dwarf planets are about. You know, the fluidity of water and light, the fact that we ourselves are liquid crystals. You know, it's just really beautiful. We're gonna really do this wide conjunction with Venus. We're gonna do it all with love, sensitivity, love, empathy. Just a couple of other aspects to highlight before I move on to a very important aspect in this first half of July. Um, on the 11th, we have a trine between Venus and Neptune, which is incredibly creative, intuitive, and wonderful for creating beauty. Venus then comes to oppose Pluto on the 12th. That's at 1 degree of Leo Aquarius. If Venus is falling in your 5th house or 7th house of relationships, again, check your chart to see if that's the case. You could be running into some controlling, jealous, or possessive behavior. That too will pass. Don't act too radically on that. That too is fairly quick moving, and that too will pass. This can also suggest radical changes with currencies, too, fundamental changes with currencies, Venus. However, one thing I want to highlight, and it's really beginning on the 8th of July, is that Mars comes to conjunct 21 of Taurus. Now, you may remember that 21 of Taurus, it's 2149, I think, of Taurus, was where we had that very important Jupiter-Uranus conjunction on the 20th of April, beginning a whole new 13 to 14-year cycle. This was about a real jump in our consciousness, an expansion of consciousness, truth coming to light, greater cosmic understanding, really exciting. Mars is going to reactivate the energy of that. And again, go back to my video, I'll put it below, of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. Mars is going to reactivate that on the 8th. And then, I stop sharing here. Well, essentially, Mars is going to move onto that Uranus. So it's an exact conjunction. It's going to move onto that Uranus and be in an exact conjunction from really spanning the 14th to the 16th of July. This is very important. It's also going to be conjunct a fixed star called Algol. Fixed stars only move a degree about every 70, well, in fact, exactly every 72 years. So they're basically in the same place for a lifetime. Algol, fixed star, does not have a good reputation. It's about people losing their heads. Now, that can mean you lose your heads because you kind of, going crazy about something, or it can be a literal losing your heads, although that doesn't happen very much these days. But it's more potentially about leaders losing their power. Leaders losing their power. And the fact is that 26 degrees of Taurus, and the fact that Mars and Uranus are exactly conjuncted, is a big deal. Because that Mars-Uranus conjunction is very eruptive, explosive, combustible. It's about potentially truth coming to light. It's about a big spiritual awakening. More people are going to wake up at this time. It is seismic activity. It's earthquake activity. That can be literal, or it can be political earthquakes, financial earthquakes, shocks, surprises, that kind of thing. It's a very sudden, shocking, explosive kind of energy, fireworks going off. So this is going to be very interesting in terms of what it reveals. If it's aspecting anything in your chart, if you've got anything between kind of 24, 28 degrees of Taurus, or any of the fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, you can feel very restless. You can feel very agitated. There's a very strong need for freedom. I've just got to go do this. Uranus transits always aspect things that we have already outgrown. This is taking us to galactic connections, the higher mind, the higher perspective, the big picture. Interestingly, by the way, just to go back to Makemake briefly, Alan Clay, who runs the Dwarf Planet University, feels that Makemake is the higher octave of Uranus and gives us a way bigger worldview of where we're headed, way bigger worldview of where we are ultimately going. And we are absolutely on the brink of that. So if any of your planets or angles are being aspected by this, it's a big deal. It's a very exciting deal. You can get downloads, insights, big lateral jumps, quantum jumps in your consciousness. This can expand our consciousness in a jump, very quickly, very radically. And it's really emphasized actually on the 16th by the moon also being in Scorpio opposite that Mars-Uranus Algol conjunction, triple conjunction. Woof. So that is the weekend of the US Republican Convention. Remember that at the Cancer full moon, that is conjunct the Sun in the US. 26 degrees of Taurus is conjunct the midheaven of Donald Trump, who has his midheaven at 24 degrees of Taurus. So, and again, this is not in any way a political statement or support or non-support. It just isn't. I'm just simply not interested in the politics. I'm much more interested in how do we expand our consciousness. But for Donald Trump, there could be some midheaven in an individual's chart is their status, their reputation. There could be some sudden shift in his status, his reputation in some way, or some sudden shocking news about him. It is opposite the Sun, SUN, of President Biden. President Biden has his Sun in the 12th house. That is the house that's linked to health issues, critical, quite serious health issues. It also rules his 9th house of legalities, foreign relations, that kind of thing. His Sun is at 27 of Scorpio. So that Mars-Uranus Algol conjunction is directly opposite his Sun. It's also directly opposing the midheaven of France in the chart for France. And I'll put the details of that chart below. But that midheaven for France is at 26 degrees of Scorpio. Again, midheaven of a country is the leadership, the government. I understand that President Macron has called snap elections, and those elections, that election process is running until the 7th of July. So with that Mars-Uranus Algol conjunction being directly opposed to that, that also suggests some radical change in government in France. I understand that President Macron is running very poorly in the polls. No surprise there, really. So we will see what unfolds. So it's going to be interesting as well. So, really, if that conjunction is falling on anything in your chart within a couple of degrees, even 3 degrees, go with the urge of freedom. Go with the urge of change. Don't resist the change, because if we resist the change, Uranus tends to bring the change in from the outside much less comfortably. There's a sudden sense of somebody cutting off or abandonment or firing or something like that. The message is that we have to go with the change, even if it feels a little bit scary and a little bit too sudden and not, I'm not quite ready. That is generally the message of Uranus. The other thing to point out is that at the time of this Mars-Uranus Algol conjunction, transiting Jupiter is conjunct the Uranus in the US chart of that 4th of July, 1776, 10+5 in the afternoon, Philadelphia. Uranus is at 8 degrees of Gemini in that US chart. Uranus is to do with seismic activity, earthquakes. So it could be that we're going to see seismic activity all over the place, really. And with Uranus, because it's the planet of the unpredictable, the planet of the unexpected, it will always rug pull. So it's very hard for astrologers to predict with Uranus, because whatever you think it's going to be, or wherever you think it's going to be, it won't be that. It will always rug pull. So that's just its nature. So we could see more seismic activity, particularly in the US, and certainly, I think, a lot more truth coming to light, because that's what Uranus is about. It's about truth. It rules the third house in that chart of the media. So I think we could see some, some really interesting developments. But yes, that triple conjunction is quite a highlight. And again, it's really extending that whole cascade of spiritual awakening that started with the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction on the 20th of April. So we have a lot going on here. Now, I will be back soon with another update on that second full moon in Capricorn on the 21st of July at 29 degrees of Capricorn, because that is happening just a few days after this Mars-Uranus Algol conjunction. And I think that is a very powerful one for governments, institutions, corporations around the world, the kind of shining a light brightly on the old order. So I really hope that's been helpful for you. Just a quick word about the Sunday evening meditations, because lots of people are asking. It's terribly simple, 15-minute meditation, 7 p.m. UK time, no Zoom links, no technology, no recordings, no nothing. I'm not leading it. We are all leading it in true Aquarian energy. You join simply energetically. You join with a clear intention that this is for the highest good of the earth and the highest good of all. You imagine that we're coming together as a family of frequency. We are holding hands. We're connecting with our hearts. And the purpose of this is to dream in, to magnetize new earth. If you can't think of anything better, use the mantra of we are welcoming in an expanded consciousness of love. We are welcoming in an expanded consciousness of love, and feel the emotions of love, joy, peace, gratitude, abundance, compassion, freedom. Remember that we can't feel those, we can't see those in our reality unless we feel them within ourselves. And when we come together in a group, those feelings are magnetized. They're amplified. They're magnified and they're amplified. Every week, people are having these amazing experiences of seeing this web of light get stronger and bigger, of tall galactic beings joining us, of us spinning into the Sufi dance. Oh, some beautiful, people are in tears during these 15 minutes. It is just thrilling, actually, that what started off as just such a simple idea really has taken on a life of its own, of high frequency energy, of that we are truly altering the quantum wave structure to, on a weekly basis, create higher timelines for humanity, higher timelines of love, higher timelines of strengthening this web of light for humanity across the world. It's just so exciting. And if we can just keep our focus on love, and I don't mean a pink, fluffy, romantic love, I mean every breath we take is love. I feel so emotional. Every breath we take is love for nature, for the earth, for the trees, for the animals, for all the people around us in our lives. Because if that's what we're broadcasting, it's amazing how much love comes back to us. It's truly astonishing, even in so-called challenging relationships, how much love comes back to you. Just give it a try as a fun game, as an experiment. And use the infinity wave that I talked, a beautiful conversation I had with Hope Fitzgerald. It works wonders. Sorry, that's been a bit of a long video this time. I hope some of it helped you. And thank you for being with me. Thank you for holding hands together on this journey. It really is magnificent. And I can truly feel the beginning of metamorphosis in a way humanity has never experienced before. And just trust that we are rocking it. God bless. Bye for now. Be back very soon.